It's just understood from the context of your sentence, which ought to tell you something about the philosophia, about the philosophy of the Hebrew language or of Judaism as a whole. And that is Judaism, Yahadut, does not have a sense in the present tense. I know that's hard to understand. Basically, you people come from a society that's Indo-European, a past, a present, a future, God knows what else you got in English. In Hebrew and true Semitic languages, I guess, there's no such thing as a so-called present. I'm just talking about Judaism right now. Judaism, the word for Judaism, a word you need to pick up now, is Yahadut. Yahadut. And the reason why I'm saying it is for the book of Esther, as I read to you the other day, you have that word min Yahadim, where the people are now overwhelmed by Mordecai and Esther, and thousands of them, according to what the text says, mit Yahadim, they converted to Judaism. So we have, for the very first time and the only time in all of the Tanakh, the word Midyahed, and the plural would be Midyahadim. I'll go into this in a second. Later on in your studies, you'll study what's called the Hitpael. This is the seventh binyan of the fourth of the seven conjugational patterns found in Hebrew. We only know the so-called binyan kal or pa'al and the piel a little bit, and that's what we'll be studying, and then we'll go into others as the semester continues. But there is a seventh binyan called the Hitpael, where the so-called present tense is the form you see on the board. Mityahed, mityahadim is the masculine plural, and then mityahedet and mityahadot will be the feminine forms. In the Hitpael verb, when a verb is in the Hitpael, it's either reflexive action or it is causative action. So I need mitrachetz. I wake up in the morning, I need mitrachetz. I wash myself. I need mitpalel. I pray. In the case of mitpalel, the word to pray, I pray, it implies causative action. I have a need to pray. I am expected to pray. I'm obligated to pray. So it's something that's a causative action. You're basically being caused or being told to do this type of action. That's what the Hitpael is all about. It's a reflexive action, doing something to yourself, the subject, or causing something to be done. With that said, Midyahed are thousands of people who are caused to become Jewish. They choose to become Jewish, if you want to see it in a more positive sense, or they're forced to become Jewish. Midyahed. And I know it's hard for you to understand that. You're trying to tell me, according to the book of Esther, thousands of people from India to Ethiopia, based upon King Ahasuerus, actually convert to Judaism? I can't tell you anything factual about that, but I can tell you if you take the DNA of thousands upon thousands of Turks, of Persians, of Armenians, of this and that, do not be shocked if you have a Jewish DNA running around. And if that's so, if there's a thing called a Jewish DNA, then maybe the story that's mentioned in the book of Esther isn't such fantasy as you think it is, but could be of actual reality and factuality. And as far as my good friend Hannah is concerned, I would not be surprised that some of the more severe Muslims actually have Jewish DNA in them, going back centuries. It's a shock. Are they Jewish? Well, potentially they were once Jewish, let's put it this way. And then when some of them discover they have a Jewish DNA, it would not shock me if they cross over from Islamic, traditions and become Orthodox Jews all of a sudden. Once you find out something about who the hell you are, you begin to have questions. And the more I see black Jews becoming, or Africans becoming Jews and black Jews dancing Hasidic dances, I'm asking myself, what the hell is going on with these people? It's one thing to become Jewish, but to get all of a sudden very extreme with your Judaism. And that's what's happening in Miyahu among Africans all of a sudden. They're all of a sudden getting into a very extreme type of Judaism. I won't be surprised if they make the claim, which they do, that they're black Hebrews to begin with. And what the hell are you telling us we're becoming Jewish? We're Jews to begin with. That's how they see it. All the kavod, all the honor to them. Anyway, that word mityahed, know that word. It's found only in the book of Esther. And that word Yahadut, that's the word for you today. That's the word for Judaism. Again, you have the Yud, you have the Hey, you have the Dalet. And notice the spelling of Yahadut. Here's a good example of a secondary opening, which is something I've taught you as part of grammar. Secondary opening is when a shvanach doesn't hold itself and opens up. That word Yahadut, I'm almost sure, was originally Yahdut. Yahdut, with the patach being closed by a shvanach underneath the hay. And if that is so, then a dagesh kav should go into that dalit. But somewhere along the way, people could not say Yahdut. They said Yahdut, 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 Yahdut was what was heard. Watch my mouth. Yahdut, 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 Yahdut. A slight derivation from the Shvanach to, I guess, the Hatapata. And the minute that Yahadut was heard, that's what we begin to write as vocalization. As a result, we make sure we get rid of the negation, that dalet, and that's the form you see today. So when it comes to syllabication, what you do is you write a CV, and then you continue with the next syllable. It's CINCVC. Here's a good example of consonant. Chataf patach plays the role of a shvana, and then you go on with the dalet, the shuruk, long vowel closed by the tav, and the long vowel closed syllable is irregular, so it's clear that the accent will be on the last syllable. But the last syllable sounds like two syllables. Yahadut, Yahadut. This is really not a true vowel, it's a half vowel. Yahadut, Yahadut. Judaism, Yahadut. Anyway, just know that word, and you can see the Yud Hey Dalet in that word, and you can see it's what? It's the word Yehudi, the word Yehuda. And something else to observe. Notice that the word Yahadut, Judaism, ends with a Shuruk Tav. Words that end with Shuruk Tav are feminine words. So if you want to look at it this way, I guess words of English like Judaism ends with ISM. The Hebrew equivalent will probably have the last syllable to be a shuruk tav. Not all the time, but I'm thinking of something right now. I'm thinking of Christianity, Natsrut. Christianity is Natsrut. Notice that it has its ending, the shuruk tav. But in English, we don't say Christianityism. We don't have an ISM there, I guess, is what I'm trying to associate. But anyway, it's interesting that religion such as Judaism and Christianity have the ut ending, and anything with an ut ending is feminine. So religion, you might say, is a feminine noun.
So you said there's no and or is in Hebrew?
There's no is or am, am.
Or am, oh, okay, but because and is that.
That's right. And A and D is, yeah.
Oh,
You can almost see the English that I speak and the Baruch speaks, the words get a little confused, am and. Yeah. Well, that's what happens with a language. Anyway, getting back to our Hebrew right now, the word mityahed, I want to put that to your attention. And we also have the word yahadut that comes out of this, and notzrut. The notzrut was the word notzri. Notzri is the word Nazarene. All right, let me make sure we understand where Christianity gets its name from. It's no doubt the word Notzri. Notzri is a Christian, but the word Notzri is most probably an attempt to get across the word Nazareth, Nazarene, Nazarene, and now you follow the Jarber methodology. You have an advantage that most students do not have. When you see the English word Nazarene, the first thing you do is get rid of the vowels. So you got an N there, you got a Z there, you got an R there, and you got an N there. Now give the Hebrew equivalents. The N will be the Nun, the Tzadi will be your English Z letter, TS combination, then the R, and so you have the word Notzri. Notzri is Nazarene. Question: what about the word Christ, Christianity? That word Christ, Christos, is not the Hebrew word for a Christian.
Is that Latin?
1 second, let me just finish. And the word Mashiach, the whole question of the word Christos, if you're interested, Christos will be the Greek equivalent of what you have Mashiach to be in Hebrew. Mashiach is not anything special. There's nothing divine about the word Mashiach. Mashiach means anointed one. So when you're anointed into office, you're a Mashiach in a way. You're anointed into office. Cyrus the Great, the one that permitted the Jews to return. Not Achashverosh, but Cyrus the first. You keep in mind from Tuesday, Achashverosh is Xerxes in that 400 period. Cyrus the Great is Cyrus II in 538, 539. He's called Mashiach. He's called Mashiach actually in the book of Isaiah. He's the anointed king, so to speak. And then one of the prayers that I have for Purim, I brought my Siddur the other day. If I have it here, you'll have the actual phraseology of, in fact, let me just read it for your benefit, if I can find it right away. There is a blessing that is found. This is an Israeli Siddur I have in front of me. It may take a few moments, but if it does, then I'm going to wait till after the break. Let me just find it. No, I see Hanukkah here, so Purim should be next door here. 1 second. Yeah. I am looking at this paragraph. The paragraph is read after the Megillah is read. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam, which is a traditional opening of prayers. Blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe. Harav et Yireinu, and the translations then go, who does champion our cause and vindicates our rights, who takes revenge for us, repaying all our mortal enemies as they deserve and punishing the oppressors. Imagine that. You read Megillat Esther and you then acknowledge God. The Hebrew word is Nokem et nikmatenu, nifrat lanu mitzarenu. Then it continues here, Mishalem, and you pay back all those who oppress us, you repay them. As if to suggest that God now is going to vindicate our rights and God is going to repay our mortal enemies as they deserve. As they did to us, we cannot fulfill it back to them. Hashem is going to do so. Is that so? This is a God of revenge, says the non-Jew. That's what you Jews believe in? And for people like Hannah and Baruch and Yirmiyahu, the word is not revenge, but the word is avenge. Avenge the innocents. Avenge those who were suppressed and destroyed. And maybe that explains that mityahed business. Yeah, let me throw that at you right now. When you have German Nazis, and I'm not fabricating, and you have Islamists from Persia who convert to Judaism, you got to be totally shocked. What the hell are these people about? That's avenging. The only way they can get rid of their sense of guilt of their parents is to become Jews. And I would not be surprised that a number of converts, as I speak right now, are converts because of this. You got a problem with that, Baruch? Then talk to Hashem. Or do you understand what we Jews, what you Jews and me in particular have to somehow understand? And then the very last words. This is where you're going to be blown away. I read the Hebrew, Ha'el HaMoshiach. O thou redeem. The translation has redeeming God. It ends with God avenging. Baruch atah Hashem. That's better. Hanifran lamo. Okay, blessed thou, O Lord. Hanifran lamo Yisrael, who basically, to use the English here, who deals out punishment. That's what it says here. O Lord, who blessed are you, O Lord, who deals out punishment to the oppressors of Israel, your people. And then it says, Ha'el HaMoshiach, the God who is the Savior. Moshiach is not the same as Mashiach. And for people like Yirmiyahu in particular, let me make this very clear. Moshiach and Mashiach. Let's write it down better. The words sound the same, Mashiach and Moshiach. Mashiach is one who is anointed. And if you're anointed into office, such as putting a little oil on your forehead, such as putting your hand on the Quran somewhere, you essentially are anointed into anointed beings with oil back in the day. Moshiach comes from the root Yud Shin Ayin, which is the verb to save. So God is referred to as the Moshiach. The Messiah is referred to as the Mashiach. The difference between the two, Moshiach is an active verb. Mashiach is a receiving noun. One who is anointed is a Mashiach. Mashiach does not mean anointing. One who is anointed is Mashiach. Moshiach is one who saves. Saving, yes. That's Moshiach. The root is Yud Shin Ayin.
So one would be from Ma and Mo. So one would be a Kamat or Patak.
Well, because I'll tell you why. One happens to be a passive noun, and one happens to be an active verb. The word Mashiach, for example, has the following words combination: any noun, not a verb, that has a kamatz, a chirik yud, a long chirik, and the last syllable basically is the sign of that particular noun. So, in other words, the last two syllables, an ah and e. Let's give you an example or two. The word nasi. Nasi is the Hebrew word for president, as we use that term today. Donald Trump is a nasi. He's not a Mashiach.
Nasi is like a secular leader.
That's a nasi is a president. I just said that word, president. Yes, you want to say a secular leader? A secular leader. But notice the word nasi. It has a combination of kamatz, hirik, yud. In other words, it's this combination. It's an ah and a long hirik, which means what? It follows the form of a pa'il. If I have the form po'el, that's an active. The Pei Ayin Lamed represents three Hebrew letters. Pa'il is a passive. It's a passive word. It's receiving the action. Po'el is doing the action. You say now, if the word nasi means president, and if that implies receiving action, how is that possible? Is not the president the leader, the commander? But to be a president, you are carried into office. The root of the word nasi is the Hebrew noun, the Hebrew verb to carry. Nun sin aleph. elected into office. You're carried into office. You don't take the position of the president on your own voluntary will. You're voted into office. I'm trying to think of other words that have the I-E combination. Nasi definitely comes to mind. Mashiach is the same word. Mashiach, you're anointed. Notice you have the kamatz, you have the chirik, and then the stolen patach underneath that patach, on the stolen patach, because the last letter is laryngeal chet, preceded by a frontal vowel. There are other words that have that I-E combination. I'm surprised my mind is not functioning in that area right now. But Mashiach and Nasi are two very common words that come to mind. And this word is not Mashiach, it's Moshiach. Translated here as God, the preserver, one who saves. And I guess from that root, Yud Shin Ayin, you have the word Yeshua. Yeshua is salvation. Yeshua is salvation. And once you see Yeshua, then you think of the word Yeshua, which is how a number of Christians choose to call Jesus, not by his Greco-Roman pagan name, but by an Aramaic, Yeshua. And Yeshua is Aramaic for Yehoshua. Yehoshua will be the Hebrew. Yehoshua. And Yehoshua is no more than Joshua. And wait a minute, Yehoshua is a combination of two words. Yeho is the four-letter name of God, the Yud-He Vav-He, and the Shua, business of salvation. And Joshua, if you will, is a savior of the people. Unlike Moses, it is Joshua who comes into the land, who conquers the land, and the Israelites are now finally able to have some settlement in the land. Or are my fellow Jews ignorant of the fact that your great rabbi Moses never got to the promised land? And you got to ask yourself, Yirmiyahu, why not? Maybe, just maybe, my good friend Hannah, Moshe Rabbeinu had several sins. One was he killed an Egyptian. He never paid for it. Oh, he did it for good reason, like Israelis kill Persians right now for good reasons. Maybe it's because Moshe Rabbeinu married a Kushia, an Ethiopian, an African. Maybe it's because Moshe Rabbeinu got drunk and his wife Tzipporah took that knife in hand and circumcised that baby. Let's try it one more time. There are three outstanding examples of our greatest of greats. He never circumcised that child. He married a foreign woman. After all, Miriam got pissed off at that. And he never had to pay for the killing of an Egyptian. Or maybe the real reason, don't get angry at me, is that Moshe is Musa. Moshe was an Egyptian. Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me the giver of our Torah is an Egyptian? You have a problem with that? Of course I have a problem with that. What's the matter with you? And why does he have the name Musa? And why is he raised by Pharaoh's daughter? And why did his mother or father throw him into a sea somewhere? And Moses died off the land. You understand what you can do with this? You can have a field day with it. And Joshua, to whom we Christians have Yeshua. Be very careful, my dear Christian. Joshua had the sword. Are you going to put a sword in the hands of Jesus? Do it. Because some of the followers of Jesus had swords. The Kana'i one did. Peter had a double sword. What do you think? Christians are pacifists? See what happens when you try to find a name? But then again, that Yeshua business, Yeshua, salvation, etc. What can I tell you? I see Yeshua in these examples here to deal with battle, not to deal with studying Torah 24/7. And something I did not know on Tuesday, I now know. Israel and the United States purposely bombed that whole area where the oil is so that Iran will never again feed China with oil. It has nothing to do with Jews in Tehran. It has to do with the future of Israel. Are you listening to me, Yirmiyahu? The United States is following the orders of Israel. Israel is telling America, you better help us out right now. Oh my God, you're trying to tell me oil wells are now involved? The hell do you think Israel was in, or America was in Argentina? People, it's crazy. I know it is, but this, just use today's examples that you can follow a little better and these Hebrew words. No, I don't think America can ever be a pacifistic country. And maybe, just maybe, you now finally have the answer. Even in the days of Mashiach, the one book that's going to have to always be consulted is Esther. Sorry to disalarm you, but this is interpretation, obviously. But anyway, back to our Hebrew right now. The verb, unless Baruch, you want to say something additional?
Oh, I heard another explanation that like the Pharaoh's wise men, Bilam, Jethro, and I forget who it was, Job, they told him that the savior of the Jews would be born
Another good example is Jethro. Yeah.
So they said, go ahead and drown all the babies. So that's why they're drowning all the firstborn
Yeah.
babies. But the sin came later on when they're on the desert, and he said, okay, sanctify the rock. The flint was a rock that followed the Jews on the merit of Miriam. When the rock was gone or hidden, the water was gone. There's like the manna from Moses' merit, the clouds on Aaron's merit. So either he struck the wrong rock, or he struck the rock without blessing it and just beating it. And for that sin, he he was not allowed to the promised land, and that's what the diviners of Pharaoh, one of them which was Jethro, foresaw. But then he prayed a certain amount of times, and if he would have prayed like 500 times, something like that, the number, he would have got into land, but he didn't, because that was Hashem's plan. And now he was buried in Mount Nebo, which is probably not the right one, but the Jordans use as a tourist attraction. Come visit Moshe Rabbeinu's grave. It's in Jordan.
All right. What Baruch is giving is an interpretation, like I am, but just whatever it is there. But it's just interesting to cite some of the examples. And again, you can always say that Moshe did not get to the promised land because Jews never will get to the promised land completely. And consequently, he's our idol because we are basically, always in diaspora and stuff of that nature. But then again, notice the word idol. Idol is what? Somebody to emulate, but idol sounds like an idol. You understand, even with the English language, every word we use has a double or triple associated meaning to it. Moshe is our idol. Right away, I have a statue in mind. God forbid, far from it, etc. But anyway, that's the situation. I'm now reading what's called the Biblical Archaeological Review. As some of you might know, I do a lot of writing in a number of areas, and I'm on the editorial board of what's called Old Testament Abstracts. It's a publication of the Catholic community, a scholarly Catholic community. Anyway, I have several journals that are assigned to me. One of them is the Biblical Archaeological Review, and the main story of this particular issue, which is issue 52, number 1. You can check it on your computer. Deals with the nature of the Last Supper. What kind of Last Supper meal? It's not the meal so much. It's not even association whether it was a Passover Seder or whether it was something else. Da, 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 da. It's just simply the table or how they sat in the dining room, etc. The most famous portrait of it was by Leonardo da Vinci in the 1400s. And Leonardo da Vinci, last semester, you might remember, there's a Jewish DNA associated with Leonardo da Vinci. But this is a famous table where people sat, all 12 disciples, leaning on each other, etc. And there's a tradition that the Roman banquets of old, people slept or sat on couches and they hug each other, they slept on each other, they ate their meals, they were entertained by artists in the middle of in a U-shaped type of form, like sat, etc. Anyway, this particular scholar points out that probably Jesus and his little group there did not have aristocratic table to sit at, and they probably sat on the floor, and they probably ate from one vessel and stuff of that nature. And he points out the archaeological evidence that seems to imply that the dot, 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 dot. But I guess the point for me is something I was going to say about this. Anyway, I guess I don't remember it right now, but it's an interesting article to read and how to interpret it, etc. And I guess the issue, there was something I wanted to say. I'm sorry, I just don't remember it now. But interpretation of the Last Supper, for example, the Last Supper is not necessarily a Passover meal. The versions that are found in Mark and in Matthew seem to have the bread before the wine. Jewish ritual meals always will have the wine first and the bread, which you call the kiddush, and then the motzi that will follow it. And then in the Gospel according to Luke, you seem to have the right order of the Passover meal. But then the earliest version of the Last Supper is in 1 Corinthians, where you'll have the Pauline version that the meal was eaten, and Jesus says, "This is my bread," but the wine is referenced after the meal. They drink the wine. So after the meal, drinking the wine has nothing to do with a kiddush, which is always before the meal. So maybe it's a different type of banquet. A messianic one is what I would call it. And so a different interpretation. But it's interesting to see how Christians would basically see this as a Jewish Passover meal. And consequently, if that is so, then Christians are into Passover, as we saw with that film, and try to see it. Black Jewish relations interrelated, dealing with the Passover as a starting point. All 4 episodes are now available on PBS, and it ends with a very positive integration of Jews and Blacks sharing history together and sharing destiny together. And for my fellow Jews, you'll discover how large the Black community is now discovering itself within Judaism. There are Black Jews that you won't even think are Black Jews, but they are, and they'll express themselves as such. It's no longer a question of being interracial, even. In fact, one lady I saw interviewed, she says, "I might be interracial, but for me, it's not important that I have a white this and a black that." Are you listening? She then says, "What is important is I'm Jewish." Do you understand how powerful that is? It ain't my color that interests me. It's the Judaism that's important to me. And the minute a person talks that way, then Christians have to just sit back a little bit. Is this what's going on now with the blacks? It's I'm Jewish. I don't know what to tell you. And I think my fellow Jews ought to learn a lesson, because the future of the Jewish people is going to be in converts. They are going to redeem the Jews in the future. We don't have numbers. They are the numbers. And they're the ones telling me it's the Judaism that's important. It's not your color. Get used to that. And fellow Jews better understand that. As far as the Christians are concerned, this country was once called a Christian country. It ain't called that anymore. I think Yirmiyahu agrees. I see him shaking his head, and that's all I need to hear. All right, people, I really need to go back to our Hebrew right now. And so I'm not going to go anymore with this who. And then the reason why she uses the who, I think I told you this. If indeed you have to emphasize, what we're looking at is page 82 and 83. What you have to emphasize is that if Hebrew does not have that verb is or are, there's a tendency, meaning you can do it if you want to, but normally people would not unless they really want to make a point. So the word is and are, if Hebrew does not have a given word, then they use the word who, and they use the word he for feminine singular, and then the plural forms are haim and hain. What's involved here? In other words, the third person subject pronoun is used as a replacement of the missing is or are. So if I want to say he is a teacher, I can say hu more. Listen to the English. He is a teacher. Hebrew has just two words, hu more. We don't have the word is, and we also don't have the indefinite article a or an. But if you want to really make the point that he is a teacher, you can say who, you can say, well, here in the case you have who more. You take that word who, well, let's use a noun. Dan, Dan, who. You put in that word who to replace the missing word is. Dan who more, stressing the fact that indeed he is a teacher. Or Hana, he mora. Or Dani Vachana Haim Morim. You just repeat that word, the third person, singular, plural, masculine, feminine, to emphasize the missing is or are. And the classic example of them all is the name of God, where Moses inquires, "What is your name? Mahashem. How should you be identified to the slaves of Israel, the slaves in Egypt?" And the response in English is, "I am that I am." The English Bibles, both Jewish and Christian, have the I am. That's not possible in Hebrew. So what you find in the Hebrew is the Ehyeh, what's called the future. Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. Ehyeh, I will be, Asher, that. Ehyeh, I will be. And you got to somehow say to yourself, what the hell is going on here? A is I shall be, I will be. Doesn't God have a present sense? But Hebrew doesn't have a present tense. And the minute you see anything in the scripture, it immediately demands clarification. Explain it. And that's the beauty of Torah, Sheba al Peh, Torah on your lips. What you're explaining may or may not be the intent of what that Hebrew is all about. You'll never know that. And so one of the explanations I enjoyed giving over the area is I shall be in that I shall be, and that in that is as Israel's life is played out, for better or for worse, God is present. That's how you know God. For better and also for worse. And when things are not good for the Jews, the first cry is Ebishter in Yiddish. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Lama. And Yirmiyahu has picked up a Hebrew phrase. The heavenly force responds, Lama Lo. Why not? And you don't want to hear that. Not in days of trouble. Not in days of persecution. Why not? What are you talking about? Aren't we your people? Aren't we this? Aren't we that? And if you claim to be that, then why don't you behave like one? I want you to understand, for every answer, there will be a rebuttal. And that's your lesson for today. No matter how convinced you are with your answer, there's always something that's missing. Anyway, people, I find that, the Ayesha Aya is the explanation that rabbinic traditions give is an interesting one. But again, the I am is probably works in English. It's I shall be, I shall be is probably hard for an English reader, and maybe for that reason, the translations of the Bible into English will not have the I shall be type of thing. But I am, I am, which is understandable. But again, Hebrew lacks the presence. Okay, people, I think we did page 86 a little bit as well. And what we could do now, let's pick up with page 86 on the bottom. Yeah, let's just do that. And then, we have time. Okay. Baruch, why don't you start it off with us? And I guess what I'm seeing here is fill in the correct subject pronoun. Again, the subject pronoun is the ani, the ata, the hu, the atem, haim, etc. And the subject pronoun that you use will be identified by this by the pronouns used by the subject that says that's there. So the dugma, the example cited, is the word student. So you're not going to say he student because he is feminine. You're not going to say haim because that's plural. But student is masculine, singular, so you use the word who. Okay, is that clear to everybody? Page 86, and the fill-ins, which subject pronoun are you going to use? And before you get started, let me look at that word dugma. I want to just check something. If this were not a classroom, I don't have that need, I guess. But because I am who I am when it comes to my writings, I need to do that when it comes to teaching as well. I want to check that spelling of the word dugma. I know how to spell it with the vav. I'm just curious if it's spelled with vocalization. The vav is there or a kubutz is there. And so I'm going to take a look. And then there's another issue with the word dugma. The word dugma is not Hebrew. It happens to be Aramaic. And you think to yourself right now, how Ze'ev discovers that that word is Aramaic. But before I get to that part, let me just check this. Yep. The phone is ringing. Stop ringing. I get a call from Florida. It's a spam call, and they basically want to sell my books. The minute they start saying they want to advertise who the hell I am, I said, I'm sorry. Thank you for your interest. I just can't deal with this.
I'll show you how to block them later.
How's that?
How to block the numbers.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. All right. The word dugma, as I thought, is properly spelled with vowels kacha. It's with a kubutz. But Mrs. Coffin, she's not part of this business of spelling with vowels type of thing. And so Israelis spell the word dugma not with the kubutz, but they write without vowels. So she writes it this way. In other words, that vav letter is really meant to represent the short kubutz closed by a shvanach underneath the gimel, etc. If the spelling of the word dugma was truly spelled with a shuruk, then the word should be pronounced as du gimma, the shva. In other words, if I spell that word like this, then the shva underneath the gimel, a shva under a letter that follows a long vowel is a shvana, not a shvanach. The word is pronounced dugma. The kubutz is underneath the dalid, but without vowels, you put the vav instead of the kubutz, obviously. The word then is also Aramaic. Words ending with Kamat Aleph, as I told you multiple times, chances are the word is Aramaic in origin, not at all in Hebrew. And now that I think about it, that word Pesach, that word Pesach is how you Jews refer to your Passover. But we Christians refer to our Easter not as Pesach, but as Pischa.
And in Spanish, Pascua.
1 second. Or Pascua.
Yeah, Pascua would be in Spanish.
All right, just 1 minute. Pascua. I don't know how to do that. Let's put a kuf there, but keep the het there. But it's that sound. Pascua will be the Spanish way of saying Pesach, but maybe Pascua is Pischa, is Aramaic, which makes the Last Supper more authentic. Jesus did not speak Hebrew, he spoke Aramaic. That's how Jews spoke in the days of the Second Temple. Let's try that one more time. When every language except English and another language which use Easter, use that Pischa business, they are really trying to be authentic. That's Aramaic. They don't have to use Pesach. That's for you Jews. That's Hebrew. See what I'm doing? My fellow Christians, you're using an authentic word. You're creating your Passover to follow the Aramaic of Jesus and his disciples. That's the beauty of Zev Garber. If you read one of the articles I wrote, the whole read it's in fact it's in the magazine. Read that last paragraph where I talk about Devar Yeshua in a Jewish studies class. This is where Christians learn that their foundation is more authentic than people give them credit. This Florida call is a pain in the neck if this is from Florida. I'm sorry I'm being interrupted this way. I can't believe it's an emergency. Let me just say something. I will tell you in a moment if this is something that important. If I know what the hell I'm doing with this phone here. Let's just see something. Suspected spam. 786 is the area code. 805 is the area code. 786 is Florida, people. 806, I don't know where that is. That's probably somewhere Hawaii somewhere. You get calls like that, don't answer. It'll be part of your bill before you know it. Or you guys will go outrage. That's one thing I learned about this new community. This is something my family bought me because my other phone just wasn't working the way they wanted it to work. It always tells me if the phone that's calling is suspicious. It's good to have it. Do you guys have it on your cell phones as well? Yeah. It's a sad commentary how people just utilize people like me. That's what happens when you're a giving person. They take advantage. And then there comes a moment it's got to stop. And learn that lesson. Don't let it affect you. Stop it. People, I'm serious because I've been told already. My birthday, as you all know, was a couple of days ago. And a number of people have asked, are you okay? Especially when they shoot in Texas, a bar somewhere. Of course, people have concern. The Jewish studies class, is it safe on this campus? I said, everything is safe here. It's nice to know that people are concerned. In addition, I've got 2 gentlemen and a lady that will take care of everything. We are in a safe situation. The school is no doubt I don't know if they're aware of anything. They probably are, but we don't have any problem. Okay, let's go back to our Hebrew now because I really need to do that with you. Okay, Baruch, continue.
Okay.
And what you do is you'll go across. In other words, you read the next line and then you read it across rather than going down. Okay, go ahead.
Talmidah is feminine, and for feminine, that she is feminine, you put he, Talmidah.
That's right. Just read it with the right answers. Don't go through a whole explanation. You did the right reasoning. Talmidah is feminine, so therefore he. He Talmidah. Next one.
Okay. Moab.
No, go across.
Oh, across. Ish. Okay. Ish. Okay. Ish would also be he, or it could be ah.
All right, stop right there. Ish. Translate the word ish for me in English.
Oh, Ish is man.
I think so.
Oh, okay. Speaking of Isha, man. Okay, yeah. So, anyway, right. So,
All right, you can say who ish. How about using another pronoun?
Ish.
That's it. In other words, just to give you guys a little more variety, use if you're doing the reading, then try to alternate your little pronouns for the reading that you're doing. So if you said hu he talmidah, I guess you could say hu ish or something like that, or ta ish. Okay, the next two lines. Go. One second, Hannah.
Who, Mora, E, who, More, E, Mora. I don't know.
Okay, one second. If you're going to read it as hu mored, that's sufficient. If you want to read it as morad, then he morah. Then the next one that's alongside of it,
E, Saxony.
that's right. Here there's no debate. Sachanit is feminine, so he's sachanit. Vakasha letargem. Mazeh he sachanit.
Everyone who makes honey.
Okay,
Yes, I know this.
okay. A word for someone who makes funny.
Tufa.
What's a sachanit in English?
Comedian.
A what?
Comedian.
A comedian. A sachanit is a comedian. All right, a comedian possibly, but a sachanit is more than a comedian. That's better. Thank you, Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu's got it. He nailed it on the head. A sachanit is one who is a actress. A sachan or sahakan is one who is an actor. So let's get down those two words. Admittedly, an actor and an actress can be a comedian, can be a dramatic actor, etc. But the terminology normally in translation, the word sachan, let's get a pen out that writes. And that word sachkan sometimes is pronounced, the shvanachanitachet is opened up, so it's pronounced as sachakan. So you might find a pronunciation as sachakan, and if so, then the shvanach lost its silence and opened up. It's called a secondary opening. Whenever shvanach becomes a shvanah, it's called secondary opening. But the Sachkan is a good example of how you can see syllabication the way it was introduced. The patach is a short vowel closed by the shvan underneath the next letter, and that's the shvanach. The word Sachkan. And what do we know about words like that? Remember one day in class I told you if you come across nouns which have this combination, a final nun at the end of the word, and the last two syllables are patach, shvanach, and then a kamatz final nun. It implies repetition. And so we had words like a kavran, one who is a cemetery worker, a kavran. Grave digger, a kavran, constantly digging the grave to bury people. A gazlan. A gazlan again is a thief. Gazlan. And now you can add to that combination. In addition to a kavran and gazlan, we have now a sahkan. And I guess a sahkan, one who is an actor, is a profession of repetition, doing that same gesture again and again. Anyway, there are other words, I'm sure, that have that combination, but it's good to know that certain words fall into a certain type of vocalization, and the vocalization is a key to the meaning of that word. In this case, words that have this type of marking have the concept of repetition. Repetition. Okay, back to our words right now. The word sahkan is sahkan is an actor, and sahkanit or sahakanit, if you want, is a actress. Continue.
Him, him,
Yes.
him or him, and student him.
Okay. Since you use him with or him, how about using another masculine pronoun plural for student team?
En or hot.
No. You use the word student team, Hannah, but use another subject pronoun. Instead of saying him, use something else in the plural.
Atem.
That's it. Atem student team and him or him. So we're trying to use different subject pronouns as well. Okay, or him are guests, and student team is a borrowed word, students. Yuriel, take the last line.
Let's say, ata,
Ata what? Let him read.
professor.
That's right.
Atem.
Ata professor. Okay, professor sounds a little too English to me. Professor. But the word is clearly a borrowed word into Hebrew, professor. And once a word is borrowed into Hebrew, the vocalization or the diacritical marks like a dagesh kal, dagesh chazak, whatever, may well be sacrificed. But in this case here, pro, the pay letter will have a dagesh kal in it, pero, and then the fe, the second time the pay letter is used, becomes a fe, which follows Hebrew grammar. A bega kefa following with a long vowel would not be plosive, will be continuant. We don't say piro pesor, we say piro fesor, F sound, so it fits nicely.
Could you use Maureen, like teacher in there?
I'm sorry?
Teacher. Could you say ata, is it Maureen or Maureen?
In the case of more, you say ata more, yeah. Unless you want to read those letters without vowels, can also be read as morah. Can also be read as teacher feminine. So the same spelling without vowels for both male and female teacher. Anyway, back to you again, Yirmiyahu. And the last word.
Let's say him, ko, kofi, nikur.
Okay, it's not exactly kofim. Mara, could you help him with that word?
Kupoin. Would be who? Kupoin?
Not exactly. So we're two down. Let's get the redemption from again.
Kofein,
Kofim, she says. Okay. Kofim is one way. Okay. All right. This word is a difficult word. And I guess when you look at it, how can you not make a mistake? Okay. I'm going to make a guess at it. And let's see if we can find it somewhere. That's what I'm writing, kupaim. But I got a feeling when we take a look at what she writes there, kupai, I'm going to write this down for the singular. I'm going to double check what Edna Coffin is doing And you better believe if she does not spell out that word in her vocabulary, and where the hell does she come up with giving us a word like that? I'm looking. I don't. Again, you have a page?
86.
I don't hear you.
Oh, it's page 86 for the Kupai.
Page 86. Wait, no, 86 is what we're looking at. Just wait a minute. I want to see if she has that word at all introduced in her vocabulary at the very beginning. I don't see it on page 78 on top. I don't see the word, I don't think so, on page 77. I don't see the word on page 76. So let me go now to unit number 2. And there's a reason for this. I want to see if she actually introduces that word or not. I don't see it on page 58, nor do I see the word. Well, I do see the word kupai on page 57. I see the word kupait to be the feminine form. She writes kupai and kupait. Professor Garber writes kupai for the masculine singular. She writes kupai. She has kupai for the feminine, and I presume the masculine plural for her will be kupaim, which is what I wrote on the board, and kupaiot will be the feminine plural. But let's forget about that. It's that kupai word, unusual word. Or is it because the word kupai is probably not Hebrew to begin with, and the minute you have that going, then what are you going to say? Let me double check the dictionary. I would not be surprised that the word kupai is some kind of Aramaic borrowed word into Hebrew. I doubt very much if the word is Hebrew. Just out of curiosity, I want to check the dictionary. And you can understand why I need to do it this way, because the plural that she gives us, can be difficult to understand, even though a good attempt was made by Hannah. Just bear with me, people. It's rare that I use a dictionary, and every hour I teach a class in Hebrew now, but this is what's gone into my head. And I ought to tell you something about what goes on with Israelis right now, how much liberty they're taking with the language. And this book goes back to at least 40 years ago. Let me see if I even have that word here. I'm looking very carefully. I'm not even seeing it. Just one second. No, the dictionary does not have it. All right, let me repeat myself. This dictionary does not. Yeah, it has the word coupon. Okay. Okay. Watch what I'm about to do. It has the word coupon. It doesn't have coupai. It doesn't have the word coupai. Okay. As I teach, I am learning. I am not exaggerating. My family made Aliyah. Your professor was 17 years old. That summer, or the first year living in Israel, my parents sent me off to Tel Aviv. 17 and a half years old, something like that. I went to an Upan. Upan is that word you pick up the minute you land in Israel. All people who are going to settle in Israel are given a free ticket to stay in a new pond. If you're going to settle with a family, they'll give you a room. After 6 months, you better be able to get a job. Your job now is to study Hebrew. I was the youngest kid sitting in a room with men probably your age, a little younger, of course, and women. Ulpan itself is not Hebrew. Yeah. Words that end with this kamas nun, you got to be very suspicious. We already showed you combinations like atzlan well, atzlan I didn't have on the board, but gazlan we did, and kavrana we did, and we had a new word today. I forgot the word even that we had on board. Anyway, kamas nun, the word is Aramaic, and opan is intensive learning for our purposes. That's where I picked up some basic modern Hebrew. That's also where I picked up a mistake I always had, and so I learned the mistake in Upan. I always thought unvocalized Hebrew, kuf pe he, is nothing more than cafe, or as Israelis would say, cafe, coffee. Where are you going? Beit cafe, going to the cafe, house of the coffee. And one day, not too long, living in Tel Aviv in a rented apartment, where I had a bed together with someone else, I guess. We rented the room together. He was a stranger. I was a stranger. That's how we rented rooms. I was walking and I saw a sign that had a kuf to pay in the hay. And I said to myself, I need some coffee. I walk to the place. I don't see a cafe at all. I see a movie theater with an outside structure that had the word cafe on top. That's when I discovered the word is not coffee, but kupa, cashier box. You don't know from cashier houses anymore. When we once had movies in the San Fernando Valley, you know what Lorena Theater had an outside where you got your ticket. And I guess if they had a sign, it said, not cafe, but cashier. That word vocalized would have been kupa. They did not write it like this. They wrote it without the vav, and you can easily confuse it as coffee. Today, there's no problem. Coffee is spelled this way, and kupa is spelled with a vav. They put a vav in there to get the U sound across. When you spell the word kupa with a kamatse, it's Hebrew. When you spell the word with an aleph, then you got to be suspicious. Because that's going to be Aramaic. That's why she has the word kupai. Kupai is how she spells it in that first unit for the word cashier. Kupai. I spelled it as kupai. I'm not questioning Edna. She's probably right. That's the way it should be. If it's Aramaic, Aramaic. But kupai is also a rational way of saying it. And then the plural kupaim, there's no question about that. But the word itself, cashier, is not even found in the dictionary. They use the word kupa. And kupa already is the structure. It's not a cashier. Let me double check again. And it's spelled with a kamatse. So that's going to imply a feminine noun. Yep. Cash box. Box office is how it's translated. Okay. And then let me show you something. You can't see it. The spelling in the dictionary is kupa, spelled two different ways. This is what happens when you have a language that has vocalization and doesn't have vocalization. If it has vocalization, pen, don't disappoint me. This is one of the two ways in which my dictionary spells kupa. This way, and it also spells it this way. Do you see the second spelling? Totally wrong. Why? Because it's spelling it with what appears to be a shuruk, close by a digation of pay. If this were truly a long vowel, then the pay should be a fa sound, not a p sound, an f sound. It spells it this way because unvocalized Hebrew spells the word like this, with a vav. So this dictionary comes along and just simply puts the sound in. That's where a beginning student or even an advanced student can be confused. This is the proper spelling with vocalization. Okay, so the word is kupai. I spelled it as kupai. Kupai will be the feminine, and kupai will definitely be the plural masculine. So getting back to the fill-in here, kupaim is not kofiim, and that's what you would expect, would you not? Because of association with a word like shomer. Shomer, shomeret, shomerim. Understood. But the word kuf pei aleph is not a Hebrew word, you might say. It's Aramaic. It's kupai, it's kupai. And the word in the plural is kupaim. That vav there is not meant to be an O sound, it's meant to be an U sound. Edna Coffin doesn't even attempt to show us that. That's where the confusion comes in. It's definitely not Kofi'im. And that's a good example. It's a good example where unvocalized Hebrew is spelled with that additional letter to get the U sound across. And as the beginning student reads it like a regular holam rather than an U sound. Otherwise, we did okay. So, Haim Kupa'im. Okay, we got two more lines to read. Back to you, young man, Yirmiyahu. The next line on page 87 on top. Okay, you got the Rofaim, you got Hadassah. I'll say something about that in a second. Why who? Who is he? Haim. Okay, okay. All right, you got at least the subject pronoun, but it came out as a singular. Okay, Haim Rofaim, they are doctors. Okay, let me now make several points. I say the word as Rofaim, Haim Rofaim. Why am I suing you this way? Because I'm trying to be very careful with my Hebrew pronunciation in light of the time we spend, which is a hell of a lot of time, but very necessary, so that in the future, when it comes to reading the Megillah, when it comes to reading the Torah, when you're going to give that honor to, when you're going to have that honor, you're not going to misread the Hebrew. And let me make an observation right now. I have no doubt in my mind that every synagogue that had the reading of the Megillah Esther, that the one who did the reading had to be extremely careful to pronounce properly the Hebrew. And if they did not, the response would be, who are you, Ashkenazi, to tell me, the Farsi, how to read the Hebrew? And the Taimani will basically say, don't question my pronunciation. Fine. But in this classroom, I'm concerned. Every Israeli does not say Rofeim. The proper pronunciation of doctors is Ro, CV, then CI and CVC for the second syllable. Rofeim. The tendency among Israelis is to say Rofim. All of a sudden, the Aleph gets wiped out and the Fe takes over its vowel, where in reality the Fe has a shvana under it. It does not have a long chirik, which is how it sounds when you hear Israelis pronounce Rofim. Americans, on the other hand, have a tendency of doing a little better by saying Rofim. 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 And the error we make by saying Rofim is having the shva underneath the Fe to sound like a shvanach, and therefore blended with the long cholam, which is not right. A long cholam should be open, not closed. So whether you say it as rofim or rofim, you're wrong in both cases. It's rofiim, rofiim. And then the next word. That next word is particularly relevant in light of the last 48 hours. In light of the last 24 hours, if you come from a walled city where you read the Megillah on Shushan Purim. That name found only once and then gets eliminated in the sentence that's found in the Megillah Esther. Hadassah, all of a sudden, is Esther. And the very next word after Hadassah is her name, Esther. What? Leave Hadassah there. How many people know that Queen Esther is not Esther? She's actually Hadassah. And now watch what I'm going to do. The hospital, the major hospital, the main hospital, the Beit Cholim that's found in Yerushalayim, has branches elsewhere, I'm sure, is Hadassah Hospital. We make a distinction. The name Hadassah is the first syllable. Hadassah. You hit the first syllable and watch my first syllable. The hey has a chataf patach under, so it's CI and CV. That's the first syllable. Second syllable is CV with a C in brackets. Last letter hey is a vowel marker. Hadassah. The hospital name is Hadassah. When you hit that second syllable, Hadassah, that's the hospital. Wait a minute, Sephardic Hebrew should hit always the last syllable. I know that. But somehow with the name, the proper name of a person, you hit the first syllable, Hadassah. The hospital is the second, Hadassah. And I guess the question now I'm going to ask is, why is Hadassah not known as the heroine of the story, and her name is Esther? Esther's Jewish, isn't it? It's Jewish because of generations of time where we associate Esther with the Jews. It originally was never Jewish. Which explains why Baruch is only Baruch in this classroom. Which explains why, sorry to say it, Hannah is only Hannah with her husband and the family, but outside she's known by her Farsi name. And Yirmiyahu is in reverse. Outside he's Jeremiah. And in this classroom, he's no longer Jeremiah. He's Yirmiyahu. My fellow Jews by choice and by birth, you're only Jewish among your own people. Outside, you're like one of them. It starts with your name. You will never have Purim if Hadassah is her name. She had to be Esther, Astarte. That's why assimilation is crucial. For Zev Garber, assimilation, I ain't going to use. a term that has ass in it. In all my 85 years, the first time I've ever made that association. But you better be a good ass if you're going to survive. What am I going to tell you?
I have a question.
You people have been duped by the English language. You literally have been duped. All I know is I can't explain why we got rid of Hadassah. At least we now know her Hebrew name. It's just dropped in there only once. And it's nice to know that the great hospital of Israel has her name. Not Beit Cholim Esther, but Beit Cholim Hadassah. And I have my sister's name is Esther. My parents named her Esther. No doubt after some relative. My sister doesn't know Hadassah. I don't think she ever associated herself with Hadassah. She'll know it because of me. You know, I talk to her Judaism a lot. It's just something interesting to note. All right, people, before you take a break, was there a question?
A question.
Oh,
Okay, so basically the Lord's Prayer is the Amidah, do you think? Because if you look at it, it has.
you saw about the Amidah?
The Lord's Prayer, our Father which art in heaven.
Okay.
It goes through those blessings, which I see a correlation between the Amidah. Have you ever considered
Could well
that?
be. You have to show me what you mean.
Yeah. But compare the Lord's Prayer when they asked Yahushua teach us how to pray, and he taught them the Amidah in a condensed version.
Okay.
If you will look at it now and tell me later.
What's throwing me is that phrase, our Lord's Prayer. The minute I hear that, I think Christianity right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But I'm saying our Lord's Prayer is essentially the Amidah.
okay. But the phraseology when you said Lord's Prayer, I did not think of anything called the Amidah, which is Judaism's 18 or 19 prayers, if you want. But the question, that's what threw me right away.
Yeah.
All right, 1 second. Before you take your necessary break, let me just make sure we finish off everything here. So, Haim Rofi'im Bahadasa. Okay, Yirmiyahu, try to do another one. You, if you can, go ahead.
Can I say Hain Pakido?
Okay, Pikidot. Okay, the letter bet seems to be erased in my book. It's by Memshalah. So they are, Pikidot would be inspectors. Okay, they are inspectors, Hain, Pikidot, by Memshalah. Okay, Baruch, finish off with the last line.
Okay. So it would be, looking at my trusty page 47, Haim,
That's it.
Haim Mahod Le'anglit.
Okay, Hain Morot Anglit, which means what?
They are English teachers.
Okay, they are teachers of English teachers, good. And finally, the last one.
Okay, so last one would be so I'm not sure if it could either be a male or female at the university. Because the universidad is at the university in Rofe, it'd be Rofe or doctors.
So what's the problem?
It's either it depends because it's unvocalized, so it's either Rofe or Rofea.
Okay. I understand your problem. The fact that it has Rofe about university, Baruch is asking if Rofe is a masculine word, how can you have university, which is an effeminate? They're two different words. He is a doctor at. So university has nothing to do with doctor. It's just simply where he's a doctor at the university. It's two different words.
I understand that, but the first one could be either Rofe or Rofea.
No, it would be Hu Rofe.
Oh,
Yeah, the subject of the sentence is a male doctor. That's all. So the word is hurofe ba'università. It could be ba'università at the university or be or at a university. That's not so. That's something already because here is unvocalized. All right, people, you need your necessary break. We come back. I would like to do one more page here and then possibly get started with the verbs. And then next week, we're going to do a lot of more Hebrew, I guess. But we're doing it slowly, but we're doing it confidently. All right, take your necessary break. We'll see you all in 20 minutes. Okay. All right.